The strange thing about destiny is that it doesn't always arrive with a warning. Sometimes it waits quietly in the dark, hidden inside a name you don't remember learning. The first thing I heard was the steady beeping of a heart monitor. Slow, rhythmic, unforgiving. Then came the smell of antiseptic and the cold sting of fluorescent lights pressing against my closed eyelids. I wanted to open my eyes. I wanted to move. But my body felt 1,000 miles away. Voices drifted around me like distant radio stations. Someone was speaking. Someone was asking questions. Somewhere nearby, wheels rolled across polished hospital floors. I couldn't make out the words. Only fragments. Only sounds. Everything felt underwater. Heavy. Slow. Unreal. My name is Maya Brooks. I'm 28 years old. At least that's what they told me later. Because in that moment, lying alone in the emergency room at St. Vincent Medical Center, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. Memories slipped through my fingers like smoke. I could feel them there. Just beyond reach. A face. A voice. Rain falling against glass. Then darkness again. Somewhere inside that darkness, a name surfaced. Not mine. His. The name rose from a place so deep inside me that I couldn't stop it, even if I wanted to. My lips moved before I understood what was happening. A whisper escaped my throat. Soft. Fragile. Barely audible. Kenji. The room grew quiet. At least it felt that way. I heard a chair scrape across the floor. Footsteps approached. Someone leaned closer. Did she say something? A woman asked. I think so, another voice replied. Sounded like a name. I wanted to ask who Kenji was. I wanted to know why hearing that name made my chest ache with a sadness I couldn't explain. But exhaustion pulled me back under before I could form a single thought. Time lost meaning after that. Minutes. Hours. Maybe both. I drifted in and out of consciousness while nurses checked monitors and adjusted blankets. Each time I surfaced, I felt the same strange sensation. Like someone was searching for me from very far away. Like a door inside my mind was trying to open. Then came the dream. I stood beneath a streetlight shimmering. Through heavy rain. Water soaked my clothes. Wind carried distant sirens through the night. Across the street stood a young boy. Maybe 10 years old. Japanese. Dark hair plastered against his forehead. His eyes locked onto mine. Not afraid. Not confused. Just waiting. As if he already knew me. As if he had been waiting for years. He opened his mouth to say something. I stepped forward. The dream shattered. My eyes snapped open. Bright white lights filled my vision. My heart pounded against my ribs. A nurse hurried toward my bed. But before she could speak, I noticed the expression on her face. The surprise. The tension. The disbelief. Miss Brooks, she said carefully, can you tell me why you whispered the name Kenji Takamura? My breath caught. Because somehow, even though I had never heard that name before in my life, it felt like I had spent years trying to remember it. The nurse's question lingered in the air long after she asked it. I stared at her, trying to find an answer hidden somewhere inside my own mind, but there was nothing there. Only confusion. Only that strange ache in my chest. I do not know, I whispered. My voice sounded weak, like it belonged to someone else. The nurse studied me for a moment before giving a small nod. That is okay. You were brought in after a car accident. The doctors say you are going to be fine. A car accident. The words felt distant, as though they belonged to another person's life. She adjusted the blanket around my shoulders and checked the monitor beside my bed. Try to rest. Then she left. The room felt larger without her. Quieter. I glanced toward the window. Rain streaked down the glass in silver lines. The city beyond was a blur of lights and shadows. Something about the rain made my stomach tighten. I had seen rain before. Everyone had. But this felt different. Familiar. Important. I closed my eyes. Instantly, fragments returned. Not memories exactly. More like pieces of a puzzle scattered across a dark floor. A train platform. A red umbrella. A voice speaking softly in Japanese. Then nothing. The images vanished before I could grab hold of them. I opened my eyes again, frustrated. The clock on the wall read 8:17 p.m. Another hour passed. Then another. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped steadily around me. Somewhere down the hall I heard a child laughing. Somewhere else, a television played quietly behind a closed door. The ordinary sounds of a hospital should have comforted me. Instead, they only made me feel more alone. Around 10 p.m. the atmosphere changed. At first it was subtle. A shift in energy. A tension moving through the hallways. Then I noticed people walking faster. Voices dropped lower. 2 security guards appeared outside my room. They were not hospital security. Their dark suits made that obvious. One spoke quietly into an earpiece. The other stood perfectly still, watching the corridor. My pulse quickened. Something was happening. A few minutes later I heard footsteps. Calm. Measured. Unhurried. The kind of footsteps that never needed to rush because the world moved out of their way. The voices outside immediately stopped. Silence followed. Then the door opened. I looked up. A man stepped inside. He was tall, maybe 6'3". Dark hair brushed neatly back from his face. A charcoal overcoat rested across broad shoulders. He looked younger than I expected. Mid-30s perhaps. But his eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen much more than his years. Gray. Sharp. Controlled. They landed on me immediately. For several seconds neither of us spoke. It felt as though the room itself had stopped breathing. I had never seen him before. At least I thought I had not. Yet the moment our eyes met, something deep inside me stirred. Not fear. Not recognition. Something older. Something buried. His expression remained unreadable. Then he took one slow step closer to the bed. Maya Brooks, he said quietly. Hearing my name in his voice sent a chill through me. I swallowed hard. Who are you? For the first time something flickered behind those cold gray eyes. Surprise. Maybe even disbelief. Then he answered. My name is Kenji Takamura. The room spun. And somehow before he said another word, I already knew that meeting him was about to change everything. For a moment neither of us moved. The rain continued tapping softly against the hospital window while the heart monitor measured every frantic beat inside my chest. Kenji Takamura stood beside my bed as though he belonged there, calm and composed, yet something in his expression told me he was just as unsettled as I was. You know my name, he said quietly. It was not an accusation. It sounded more like a question he had been asking himself for hours. I looked down at my hands. An intravenous line disappeared beneath a bandage on my wrist. Everything felt real and unreal at the same time. Apparently I do, I replied. But I do not know why. His gaze never left my face. Neither do I. That answer surprised me. Powerful men were supposed to have answers. They were supposed to walk into rooms carrying certainty. Yet there was uncertainty in his eyes now. Not much. Just enough to make him human. The silence stretched between us. Finally he pulled a chair closer and sat down. Outside the room, I could still see shadows moving through the hallway. Men in dark suits. Quiet. Alert. Waiting. Whoever Kenji Takamura really was. People seemed willing to rearrange entire buildings around his presence. The nurse said you were asking questions, he said. About me. I nodded. She asked why I whispered your name. And I could not explain it. A faint crease appeared between his brows. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat and removed a photograph. The edges were worn from age. He held it carefully for a second before offering it to me. Look at this. I accepted the picture with trembling fingers. It showed an old playground. The colors had faded. A little boy stood beside a swing set. He could not have been older than 10. Dark hair. Serious eyes. Even after all these years I recognized him immediately. My breath caught. That is you. Kenji gave a slow nod. Yes. I stared at the photograph. Something stirred deep inside my memory. Not a complete memory. Just a sensation. Summer sunlight. Fresh-cut grass. The smell of rain arriving before a storm. My pulse quickened. Why are you showing me this? He hesitated before answering. Because when I heard your name I felt something too. I looked up sharply. What does that mean? For the first time since entering the room he looked away. Toward the rain-covered glass. Toward the city lights beyond. It means I spent the last 6 hours reviewing every detail about your life. The statement should have frightened me. Instead it only deepened the mystery. And? I asked. And I found nothing. His voice lowered. No connection. No mutual friends. No shared schools. No business records. No reason our paths should have ever crossed. My stomach tightened, because that was exactly what made everything feel wrong. If we had never met, why did looking at that photograph feel like opening a door inside my chest? Why did that little boy seem familiar? Kenji slowly stood. His eyes settled on the photograph still resting in my hands. There is one thing I have not told you. The room suddenly felt colder. What? He took a long breath. When I was 10 years old, I disappeared for 3 days. Every sound in the hospital seemed to fade away. No one ever discovered where I went. His voice remained calm, but something behind it trembled. Until tonight, I believed I had forgotten those 3 days forever. The words settled over the room like a storm cloud. I stared at Kenji, searching his face for some sign that he was exaggerating, some indication that this was all a misunderstanding. Instead, I found something far more unsettling. Sincerity. He believed every word he had just spoken. The rain continued sliding down the window behind him, turning the city lights into blurred streaks of gold and white. You forgot 3 days? I asked quietly. Kenji nodded once. Doctors called it trauma. They said memory sometimes protects itself by hiding things. I swallowed hard. Memory. The word alone made my chest tighten, because my own memories felt fractured now, like a book with half its pages torn out. Kenji glanced toward the photograph still resting in my lap. For years, I tried to remember what happened during those missing days. His voice remained calm, but there was weight beneath it. Years of unanswered questions. Years of searching. Nothing ever came back? I asked. Nothing clear. He looked away briefly. Only pieces. The room seemed smaller suddenly. The steady beeping of the monitor sounded louder. More urgent. What kind of pieces? For a moment he did not answer. Then he walked toward the window. His reflection appeared faintly in the glass. Rain, he said. A train station. My heart skipped. A red umbrella. The photograph nearly slipped from my fingers. My pulse thundered inside my ears. Because those were the exact images that had been haunting me since I woke up. Kenji slowly turned back toward me. The surprise on his face matched my own. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us needed to. Somehow we both understood what had just happened. We were remembering the same things. The realization sent chills down my arms. That is impossible, I whispered. I know. Yet neither of us sounded convinced. My gaze drifted toward the photograph again. This time I noticed something I had missed before. A small object hanging around the boy's neck. A silver pendant. Worn. Simple. Familiar. My breath caught. A flash exploded inside my mind. Not a thought. Not a dream. A memory. I saw small hands holding that exact pendant. I heard rain hitting metal rooftops. I felt a child standing beside me. Then the image vanished as quickly as it appeared. I pressed a hand against my temple. Maya. Kenji stepped closer. Are you all right? The necklace. My voice shook. You were wearing a necklace. His expression changed instantly. What necklace? I looked up at him. In the photograph. Silence filled the room. For the first time since arriving, Kenji looked genuinely stunned. No one knows about that necklace. The words sent another chill through me. What do you mean? He hesitated, then reached beneath his shirt collar. Slowly, carefully, he pulled out a thin silver chain hidden beneath his clothing. At the end hung a small pendant, the exact same pendant from the photograph. My breath stopped, because the moment I saw it, another memory surfaced. A little boy standing beside me beneath a station roof while rain poured from the sky. His frightened eyes finding mine. His small voice asking a question I could almost hear. And then something even stranger happened. Before I could stop myself, before I could understand why, I finished the memory out loud. You told me not to forget you. The color drained from Kenji's face. Because somehow, those were the exact words he had been about to say. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The only sound in the room was the steady rhythm of the heart monitor beside my bed. Kenji stood frozen, the silver pendant resting against his palm. I could see the disbelief in his eyes. Not fear. Not suspicion. Something deeper. The kind of shock that comes when reality suddenly changes shape beneath your feet. How do you know that? He asked quietly. I wished I had an answer. Instead, I closed my eyes and searched through the fragments swirling inside my mind. The memory felt closer now. Still incomplete, but no longer hidden behind a locked door. I do not know, I admitted. It just came back. Kenji lowered himself into the chair beside the bed again. For the first time, he looked less like an untouchable man of power, and more like someone carrying an old wound he had never managed to heal. Those were the last words I remember hearing before everything went blank, he said. My eyes opened immediately. You are sure? He nodded. I have spent 24 years trying to remember where they came from. A chill ran through me. 24 years. That meant whatever connected us had started when we were children. Long before either of us became the people we were now. I glanced toward the rain outside. The storm had grown heavier. Water streaked across the glass in shimmering waves. Something about that sound pulled at another memory. Suddenly I could see flashes of a train station. Bright yellow lights reflecting on wet pavement. Travelers hurrying beneath umbrellas. A little boy sitting alone on a bench. Waiting. Lost. My breathing quickened. There was a station, I whispered. Kenji leaned forward. What kind of station? A train station. The image sharpened slightly. You were sitting by yourself. His eyes widened. Go on. I pressed my fingertips against my temple. Every detail felt fragile, like touching a spider web without breaking it. You looked scared. Kenji said nothing. He simply watched me, listening, hoping. I think I sat beside you. The room felt strangely warm now despite the rain. You were holding that pendant. My gaze drifted toward the silver chain in his hand. You kept checking it over and over again. Kenji stared at the necklace. Then he gave a slow nod. My mother gave it to me. The words were barely above a whisper. I never told anyone that. Silence filled the room once more. Not an uncomfortable silence. A meaningful one. The kind that arrives when two strangers begin realizing they are not strangers at all. Then another thought surfaced. Sudden. Sharp. Unexpected. My stomach tightened. There was someone else. Kenji's expression changed immediately. Someone else. I nodded slowly. A woman. The memory flickered at the edge of my consciousness. A warm smile. Dark curls. Gentle eyes. She was with me. My pulse accelerated. I think. The image became clearer. I think she was holding my hand. Kenji stood abruptly. Not out of alarm. Out of recognition. The color drained from his face as he stared at me. Then he spoke 5 words that changed everything. Tell me what she looked like. My throat felt dry. Kenji's question hung between us while rain continued drumming softly against the hospital window. I closed my eyes again and focused on the image. The woman appeared slowly, like a photograph developing in a darkroom. First her smile, then her eyes, then the way she squeezed my hand whenever I looked nervous. She had dark curly hair, I said quietly. Brown eyes. Warm eyes. Kenji did not move. What else? I took a slow breath. She wore a cream-colored coat. I remember that because it kept getting wet from the rain. The room fell silent. When I opened my eyes, Kenji was staring at the floor. His jaw tightened. Something inside him had shifted. Kenji. He looked up. For the first time since we met, the control he carried so effortlessly seemed to crack. Not completely. Just enough for me to see what lay beneath it. Grief. Old grief. The kind that never truly leaves. That sounds like my mother. My heart stopped. What? He nodded once. Slowly. Carefully. As if speaking too fast might break the moment. The coat. The hair. The eyes. His voice lowered. That. Sounds exactly like my mother. A strange sensation rushed through me. Suddenly the memory sharpened again. I saw the train station more clearly. The polished floors. The crowded platform. The bright departure board hanging overhead. And then I saw something else. My own reflection in a window. I was not alone. I was a little girl. Maybe 8 years old. Standing beside that woman. Standing beside Kenji. My hand trembled. I know her. The word slipped out before I realized it. Kenji stared at me. You remember her? I think so. Another flash surfaced. This time stronger than before. The woman kneeling in front of me. Smiling. Adjusting a scarf around my neck. Saying something about staying warm because the weather was changing. Tears suddenly filled my eyes. I did not know why. The memory felt safe. Familiar. Precious. Yet it carried an ache I could not explain. Maya. Kenji's voice softened. What else do you remember? I pressed my hand against my chest. My heartbeat raced beneath my palm. There was a photograph. The image appeared instantly. A camera flash. Laughter. 3 children standing together. No, not 3. 2 children and 1 woman. We took a picture. Kenji leaned forward. What kind of picture? At the station. I swallowed hard. Before something happened. The warmth vanished from the memory. A shadow replaced it. Not danger. Not fear. Just uncertainty. A feeling that everything was about to change. My stomach tightened. After that, I cannot see clearly. Kenji looked away. Deep in thought. Then without warning he reached for his phone. A few quick taps illuminated the screen. He stared at it for several seconds before turning it toward me. My breath caught instantly. The photograph. It was the exact photograph from my memory. A younger version of Kenji standing beside a smiling woman. And next to them stood a little black girl wearing a blue scarf. My pulse hammered inside my ears. Because the little girl in the photograph was me. The photograph trembled in my hands. I could not stop staring at it. Every detail matched the memory unfolding inside my mind. The blue scarf. The train station. The woman standing between us with one hand. Resting gently on my shoulder. For years, that moment had been buried somewhere beyond my reach. Now it sat in front of me, undeniable. Real. This cannot be possible, I whispered. Kenji remained silent. His eyes never left the photograph either. It was as if he was seeing it for the first time, despite having owned it for years. Where did you get this? I asked. My mother kept it. His voice was steady but barely. After she passed away, I found it among her personal belongings. A strange sadness settled over me. I looked at the woman in the picture again. The warmth in her smile felt familiar. Too familiar. She was kind. The words escaped before I could think about them. Kenji slowly nodded. She was. The room grew quiet. Then another memory surfaced. This one stronger than any before. I saw the station clock overhead. I saw people rushing toward departing trains. I heard announcements echoing through loudspeakers. And then I heard laughter. Her laughter. My eyes widened. She used to bring us hot chocolate. Kenji froze. I could actually see the shock cross his face. What? Hot chocolate. I swallowed hard. There was a small cafe inside the station. We sat near the window. The memory sharpened further. You always asked for extra marshmallows. For a second, Kenji simply stared at me. Then he looked away and pressed a hand against his mouth. Not because he doubted me. Because he remembered. I could see it happening. The wall around his memories was beginning to crack. I hated marshmallows, he said quietly. My mother used to laugh because I always gave them to someone else. My pulse accelerated. You gave them to me. The words landed between us like a thunderclap. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. Then something else emerged from the darkness of my memory. A name. Not Kenji's. Another name. One I had not thought about in decades. Elijah. The word slipped out before I understood it. Kenji looked up instantly. Who is Elijah? I pressed my fingers against my temple. Images flashed through my mind. A tall man. A warm smile. A baseball cap. Strong hands lifting me onto his shoulders. My heart started racing. My father. Tears filled my eyes. That is my father. The memory became clearer with every passing second. Elijah Brooks standing beside Kenji's mother. The 4 of us together. Laughing. Talking. Like families who had known each other for years. My breathing caught. Because one truth suddenly became impossible to ignore. We had not met by accident. We had not shared a random moment at a train station. Our families had known each other. Somehow. Somewhere. Long before either of us could understand why. Then Kenji slowly reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The moment I saw it, a chill ran through my entire body. Because written across the top, in faded ink nearly 25 years old, was my father's name. My eyes locked onto the paper in Kenji's hand. The faded ink looked fragile, as if time itself had tried to erase whatever was written there. Yet one name remained perfectly clear. Elijah Brooks. My father's name. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. Where did you get that? I asked. Kenji carefully unfolded the page. It was inside a box that belonged to my mother. His voice was quiet now, thoughtful. I found it years ago, but I never understood why she kept it. Rain rattled softly against the glass while he handed the paper to me. My fingers trembled as I took it. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges. At the top was my father's name. Beneath it were several lines of handwriting. Not my father's. Not Kenji's. His mother's. I recognized it immediately, even though I had never seen it before. Somehow I knew. The same strange certainty that had followed me since waking up. I slowly read the first sentence. Thank you for saving my son. My breath caught. The room disappeared around me. Suddenly another memory surfaced. Stronger than any before. I was standing in the station again. Only now I could see more. My father was talking to Kenji's mother. Both of them looked worried. Not frightened. Concerned. Like adults trying to solve a problem children could not understand. Then I saw young Kenji sitting beside me on a bench. Quiet. Nervous. Holding the silver pendant in his hand. I remembered offering him half of my cookie. The memory felt so real that tears immediately filled my eyes. Maya. Kenji's voice sounded distant. What is it? I looked up. My father knew your mother. Kenji nodded slowly. I think they were friends. Friends. Such a simple word. Yet it explained so much and so little at the same time. I looked back at the paper. Beneath the note was a date. 24 years ago. Exactly. My pulse accelerated. This was written the same week we met. Kenji stepped closer. Then maybe that is not a coincidence. I wanted to disagree. I wanted to say all of this was impossible. But every memory returning to me proved otherwise. There was one thing I still could not understand. If our families knew each other, I asked softly, why did we disappear from each other's lives? The question lingered in the room. Kenji did not answer immediately. Instead, he reached into the box of documents he had brought and removed something else. A second photograph. Unlike the first one, this image had been torn across the middle. He handed it to me. My stomach dropped. On one side stood my father and Kenji's mother, smiling, standing together. On the other side, barely visible near the torn edge, was another man. His face had been intentionally removed, not damaged by time, cut away, deliberately. A cold feeling settled in my chest. Who is that? I whispered. Kenji's expression darkened, not with anger, with realization. He stared at the missing section of the photograph for several seconds before speaking. I do not know. Then his gray eyes met mine. But I think he is the reason both of us forgot everything. The photograph remained between us like a question neither of us could answer. I stared at the missing section where the man's face should have been. Whoever he was, someone had wanted him erased. Not forgotten by time. Removed on purpose. Outside, the storm was finally beginning to fade. The rain softened against the window, and for the first time that night, I noticed the city lights shining clearly through the glass. Kenji slowly sat back down. The exhaustion on his face made him look less like the powerful man everyone feared and more like the boy from the photograph. The boy who had once sat beside me sharing hot chocolate and marshmallows. I spent years searching for answers, he said quietly. I never imagined they would be waiting in a hospital room. I looked down at the photograph in my hands. Neither did I. Silence settled between us. Comfortable this time. Not empty. Full. Full of memories returning one piece at a time. Full of questions that no longer felt impossible to answer. Then another image surfaced inside my mind. Gentle. Clear. Different from the others. I saw the station one last time. The rain had stopped. My father was kneeling in front of me. Kenji's mother stood nearby. Both of them were smiling. Not worried. Not afraid. Hopeful. As if they believed everything would be all right. My eyes filled with tears. I remember something else. Kenji immediately looked up. What is it? I smiled through the emotion gathering in my chest. They were happy. He frowned slightly. Who? Our parents. The memory grew stronger. Whatever happened afterward, they did not expect it. In that moment they were happy. Kenji's expression softened. I could tell he was seeing it too. Not the details. The feeling. The truth hidden beneath everything else. My mother used to tell me that people matter more than power, he said quietly. I never understood what she meant. I glanced toward the photograph. Maybe she was trying to protect something. He followed my gaze. Then he nodded. Slowly. Thoughtfully. The pieces were still incomplete. The missing man. The lost years. The reason our memories disappeared. Those mysteries remained. Yet somehow they no longer felt frightening. Because for the first time, neither of us was searching alone. A nurse gently knocked before entering the room. She smiled when she saw me sitting up. Looks like someone is feeling better. I laughed softly. The sound surprised even me. It felt like the first genuine laugh I had managed since waking up. The nurse checked my monitor and adjusted a few settings before leaving us alone again. As the door closed, I looked at Kenji. What happens now? He considered the question. Then his eyes met mine. The same eyes I had unknowingly carried through 24 years of forgotten memories. Now, he said, we find the rest of the story. I glanced down at the photograph one final time. The little girl in the blue scarf smiled back at me. Beside her stood a boy who had once asked me not to forget him. Somehow, despite the years, despite the missing memories, despite everything that had separated us, I never truly had. And perhaps that is the strange thing about destiny. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it hides. But when two lives are meant to find each other again, even time eventually remembers the way home.